Hello and welcome to this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators TV. Every week, we love to bring to you leaders from innovation in healthcare around the world. Our vision at GIANT Health is to improve the health and the well-being of people around the world by facilitating innovation and encouraging and supporting healthcare tech entrepreneurs to accomplish new innovations to deliver better health outcomes at lower cost. So this week, I'm extremely proud to bring to you some sponsors from GIANT Health. We have Dr. David Whittaker, CMO, and David Kuraguntla, CEO from Alio. So hello, David and David. Nice to see you guys.
Good morning, Barry.
Pleasure to see you again, Barry.
Yeah, thank you so much for your support. And we love working with you guys and really proud to have you on the episode today. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to talk a little bit about a few of the main issues, not only, of course, in healthcare and big challenges in society, but also our listeners are a lot of innovators and clinicians from around the world. And I think they'd love to hear about your work and your business as well. So, Dave, if you don't mind, if you can begin, we'd love to hear a little bit more broadly about the scope, so to speak, and scale of the challenge that you guys are involved in.
Absolutely. I think, chronic disease has been certainly a big issue as we've thought about it from a scope of size, from cost. You mentioned a couple of things that we're certainly trying to do in the arena. I think if you look at the world at large, globally, 1 in 3 adults suffer from multiple chronic conditions. And if you narrow that even further, perhaps now to something like kidney disease, almost 1 billion people worldwide have chronic kidney disease. And if you look at all the stages those patients go through, just across the US and Europe alone, it's about 1.5 million people that are at the tail end and the most expensive end of that disease. And being able to certainly tackle it has been something that Alio is looking to help solve as an initial target point before continuing to expand from there.
I mean, obviously, these challenges are absolutely vast, and the impact of these challenges, of course, exists around the world. Dave, if you don't mind, I'd love to ask you to elaborate on that a little bit. For example, what are examples of the economic impact, and are there issues relating to inefficiency caused by lack of innovation?
Absolutely. I think, fortunately, most healthcare systems are set up for acute episodic care in mind, rather than long-term conditions that can definitely be managed at home and outside of the traditional clinic setting. If you think about where we can take the world, I think if you look at the landscape, it really definitely requires tools and technologies that can aid patients and clinicians in monitoring and administering that care remotely. And we've heard a lot about remote monitoring. But it's not just about your vitals, right? I think it's really about what is going to move the needle for this patient. Do we have the right data? Instead of just getting a few snapshots of the patient over time, can we actually get a video to see the ups and downs and really meet the patient where they are? And last but not least, I'd say that there are certain, we've seen a big rise. We've gone from having to go get a finger stick every single time you want to get your blood drawn to see whether or not where your glucose level is at for diabetes. Yes. And we've taken that to CGM devices now. It's the same thing needs to happen in other chronic diseases, especially one as big as kidney diseases.
No, that's a very, very good point. If you don't mind, we'll take a step back just for a second, David.
Sure.
A lot of our listeners from around the world are involved in healthcare, but not, if you will, from the clinical perspective, and a lot of them are innovators outside of healthcare, wanting to get involved and understand healthcare better. So just to take a step back very, very briefly, you explained that the history of the provision of healthcare is about chronic and episodic treatment. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So I think often, especially if we look at, for example, even something as big as we mentioned as kidney disease, where almost 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 adults globally are going to deal with the problem, still almost 60% of those patients are going to crash into needing someone to actually go and effectively a machine to perform the work of their kidneys. And so much of our care is based on things have gone poorly. and now I'm in an ER, A&E on your side of the pond, if you will.
Yeah.
And now we have to go and we have to go tackle this problem today. They're in an ICU.
Exactly.
How do we deal with it? So it's just that moment in time, as
Yes.
opposed to, I knew you're heading in the wrong direction. I was able to call you up and intervene early. I think diabetes, once again, is a great idea of that trend of my glucose is changing. I need to take a medication to help with it, and the patient is trained well enough to know what to do. And in that scenario, that can certainly happen for a lot more than just diabetes.
Brilliant. Okay, no, that's extremely helpful. So historically, it's about acute, like you said, and episodic. In other words, you don't call the doctor until you're crashing. And that obviously could lead to all sorts of what you want to say, too little, too late, and too expensive
Right.
levels of attention by healthcare. And if I understand correctly, of course, none of that is sustainable. And so if we thinking about it as broadly as possible, we need to figure out how to nudge healthcare to move away from the 100-year-old sick care model towards the well-being model, so to speak, which has to include a lot more early diagnosis, early warning, early attention. Would that be a fair summary?
Absolutely. I think early warning means early intervention, and more likely at home rather than a very costly setting.
Excellent. No, that really helpful clarification. Thank you very much for that. So the other Dave, Dr. Whittaker, extremely good to have you joining us today, and we appreciate your time. Thank you. Could you help us to understand, for example, managing ESKD today from the doctor or the physician's perspective? What are some of the key issues here, please?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Barry. It's a true pleasure as a physician to be a part of the journey that Alio is moving forward with in the care of these chronic CKD patients, chronic kidney disease, and the end-stage renal disease patient population. See, the reality is there has not been a lot of innovation in this area for decades, and there's this general misconception that many people have that because a dialysis patient goes to their dialysis center 3 times a week for their
Right.
dialysis, that they're being regularly managed.
Oh,
But that's really a misconception, because in reality, what happens is they go for their 3 to 4 hour dialysis session. And during that period of time, they're seen by an advanced care provider for maybe about 8 minutes. And on top of that, they're only receiving a blood draw about 1 to 2 times per month. So what that means is that these patients with a very significant chronic disease have these long periods in between their dialysis sessions and in between blood draws where their clinical teams and the patients themselves really don't know exactly what's going on.
no, they're not connected.
Exactly. And as a result, there's a number of the common complications which are unfortunately fairly prevalent within this disease population, such as fluid overload. The dialysis machine may not take off enough fluid, or maybe they had a little bit too much water the day before because it was hot. Abnormalities in their potassium can be life-threatening. As potassium levels get too high or too low, it can actually lead to fatal arrhythmias. And then other problems like their blood levels becoming too low. We call that anemia, but if their blood levels get too low, people become tired, they become lethargic. And traditional dosing for these types of problems with medications occurs in the orders of maybe once a month, maybe once every couple months. And instead of having a precise attention to detail for these patients, we're left with these big gaps in care. That's where we hope that Alio's technology can be, somewhat fundamentally transforming for the way these patients are being taken care of, and very supportive of what the doctors and the nurses and the care providers are able to provide for these patients.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that overview. That's actually really helpful and informative. So we haven't had that much innovation over the past few decades, but this leads us interestingly to what Alio is doing. So Dr. Whittaker, if you'd be kind enough to tell us a little more about what you guys are doing. If you're happy, please to share with us information about how the technology works and the impact, for example, that the technology will have.
Well, thanks for that question as well. And I must start off by saying that, again, it's a humble privilege to be a part of this team. The real work goes to Dave. It goes to his scientists. It goes to his engineers. It goes to the vision that led into this. So I'm able to speak essentially on the shoulders of the giants that have created this technology. So I just want to be clear for that I as much as I would like to say that this was all my own innovation, it's really the team and the work that's come before me. But
Excellent.
but the work that and the technology that Alio has developed is really quite fundamentally fascinating. So at its base, it's a remote monitoring platform. It's designed to change the management of chronic care patients. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that we are trying to provide a level of precision care for patients that have never had that in a non-invasive way that is remote in the care of their own home, as they're out on the streets, when they're on vacation. So the Alio technology consists of three parts. There's a smart patch. It's a small patch shaped very much like a Band-Aid that is applied right on top of a dialysis patient's fistula. That patch connects to a hub, and the hub then connects to the cloud in a HIPAA, meaning a protected and encrypted fashion. And that then is relayed information to a portal that the clinicians can access in a secure fashion, so that the patients can rest assured that as long as their patch is on, that they're being continuously monitored. I want to be clear, the patch measures at set intervals as decided upon by the clinical staff. So we tend to default to about every 3 hours. So what that means is instead of 1 to 2 blood draws per month, the patients are receiving a data recording about every 3 hours.
Wow.
And if I may, the information that's coming off the patch is really quite fascinating. So in its current FDA cleared condition, the patch is able to relay information on the patient's heart rate, their skin temperature. It measures quantitatively their hemoglobin and their hematocrit. It sends a 15-second audio recording of what the fistula sounds like. That's the equivalent of having a physician with a stethoscope listening to their fistula every 3 hours, day after day, from the safety and privacy of their own home.
Yes.
And then really impressively, the team of scientists also recognized that they can detect the potassium level within these patients' blood. So we have developed a means of classifying patients as having normal potassium or abnormal potassium. What this does is it provides clinically actionable metrics that the clinical team can use to reach out to a patient and say, hey, we've received a notification that your potassium may be out of normal. We need you to come on in and get a non-emergent blood draw. And then from there, we'll make further decisions on what to do with your care.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's absolutely extraordinary. Could you elaborate, please, briefly on the potassium issue? As a doctor, why is that a big deal?
Absolutely. So it turns out that about 98% of the body's potassium is held within our cells. So that leaves about 2% that's floating around within the areas in between your cells, in your blood, for example. Potassium is a fundamental electrolyte that changes the charge in your cells. One of the biggest and most sensitive organs in the body to charge is actually the heart. So arrhythmias, which is when the heart changes the way it's beating. It might go too fast, it might go too slow, it might start skipping beats. Arrhythmias occur when potassium levels can become too high or too low. Some of these arrhythmias can actually become fatal. Ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation are two terms that a lot of people have heard before. And when that happens, it's often a lethal event. So the ability to keep this potassium within a very, very tight range, to give you just a quantitative sense of that, it's between 3.5 and 5.2. So it's a very, very tight range that the body normally keeps that controlled. And the kidneys are paramount to that. But when your kidneys aren't functioning well, it's all dependent upon the dialysis machine. So something as simple as having a diet that's a little bit higher in potassium on one particular day, maybe you had a sweet potato pie, for example, can actually throw a dialysis patient's potassium levels through the roof. So our system, rather than leaving these patients to 1 to 2 blood draws per month, is actually monitoring them every 3 hours. So it's really quite exciting.
No, absolutely, absolutely outstanding. I wasn't aware of the value of a potassium, I suppose, as what you call it, an indicator of other health issues. So that's extremely interesting. Dr. Whittaker, a little bit more, please, about the impact that the technology will have. We are incredibly impressed by the technology, and once again, to you and Dave and the whole team from Alio, congratulations on what you guys have accomplished. Absolutely amazing. But what about the impact? What is this going to do?
Well, It's going to do a lot, Barry. It really is. So, right now, if we look within the United States, there's a very, very small percentage of patients that actually are able to receive dialysis in their own home. So
Okay.
most of these patients have to travel. Some of them who live in remote areas will travel up to an hour and a half to a dialysis center to have 3 to 4 hours worth of dialysis. And they get back in the car or in the bus and they return an hour and a half. They're spending the vast majority of their day every other day, so 3 times a week, in that type of care.
Wow.
One of the big challenges and the reasons that they cannot have dialysis at home is because of all the logistics that go into measuring their different blood levels.
Hmm.
And dialysis is adjusted based upon what people's blood levels are, what their fluid status is. So currently, even if they have a dialysis machine at home, they still have to manage the logistics of their different blood levels.
Hmm.
What we intend to do with Alio's technology is to suddenly open up this whole horizon of what's called home dialysis. So the
Hmm.
ability for these patients to actually receive dialysis in the privacy and the comfort of their own home um, is fundamentally, that opportunity is opened up by what Alio is able to provide. And then secondly, we all speak, at least in the clinical world, of precision medicine,
Yes.
excuse me, or patient-centered medicine. With the type of knowledge that we're able to gain from Alio's technology, we can finally actually truly deliver patient-centered precision medicine to an entire population of patients with chronic disease. It's a really, really exciting time to be a part of this company.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, these are profound opportunities, aren't they? And as you have interestingly explained it, the impact is just vast. So once again, I'm amazed, and congratulations on what you guys are working on and what you've accomplished already. So important for healthcare and for society beyond that. So Dr. Whittaker, thank you very much for some of those explanations. So interesting. David, if we could come back to you, please. Love to hear a little bit more about your business and what you guys have accomplished in terms of recent developments. Do you have any announcements or any recent developments you could share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, from this, right around that time from Giant last year, being able to talk about closing our Series C at that time, I was certainly excited. Adds a little bit more fuel in the tank into what we certainly believe is a rocket ship to
Absolutely.
get us into the next stage.
When did you guys close the Series
Yeah,
C?
we closed another 18 million in December or November, I guess, of last year,
Yeah,
in 2022.
nice.
And
Who were some of the investors? Are they public?
they're not public, but one is a large Asian family office that has been very involved in the medtech and biotech space. Certainly grateful for their involvement. A lot of our investors to date have been involved in multiple medtech companies that have gone on to go public, et cetera. So a long and storied history, if you will, but we probably have done things a little bit differently in that we've been able to raise the equity needed. So about almost $60 million to date so far from family offices that have been involved in the medtech and biotech spheres, which has certainly been valuable for what we're doing. And I think had a
Yes.
nice long-term view on investing, which is certainly important.
Yes. Patient money, as they say.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice one. Well, congratulations on the Series C, obviously. What else? Other developments and news from Leo?
Absolutely. You brought up the second clearance. That's certainly exciting. Adds on to our first clearance from 2022. Being able to expand into these arenas is not only important as a milestone and certainly something to celebrate, but even more important for patients. And the reason it's important for patients is that it allows us to actually go beyond the impact of helping and changing their lives in clinical trials to now really making it out there for anyone to utilize. We're certainly excited. It will be public here shortly, but we landed our first commercial contract with a large managed services organization that manages a few tens of thousands of people, starting off initially with their ESKD cohort, and then with the opportunity to expand, they also manage a lot of chronic kidney disease and heart failure patients. So looking forward to doing that as our own indications expand on the regulatory side, which is certainly important.
Fabulous. Well, congratulations on that as well.
Indeed.
A superb accomplishment. And we'd love to hear a little bit about, the vision for the future. So, Dave, if you could give us a view about that, where are you guys going to be over the next few years? And as an entrepreneur, are you looking at an exit or other types of expansion opportunities?
So I think we always look at it as, businesses are bought, not sold, right? And so from that perspective, our focus is on helping as many patients as possible. And if along the way, the right thing is to perhaps hand stewardship of that over to someone who can make a broader impact, then certainly we'll think about that. But I think our focus is very much heads down on how do we create the largest impact that we possibly can. There's an opportunity to build a business here that can be profitable and be able to also have the impact that it needs for our shareholders and employees and everyone else that's involved in the company as well, which I think is certainly key of not just taking billions of investor dollars and hoping something works. I think especially in digital health, I think it's important to lower costs and also do well as a business. Certainly should be at the forefront of people's minds and not just falling in love with their technology. So that being said, we're excited to go after some of the additional regions of the world that we've been involved in. We've been very blessed to do some work out in the Middle East. So we have some great partners there, ranging from Saudi Arabia to Jordan to the UAE. And then also, as we're going through the CE mark process, obviously we've had a solid relationship with a few groups in both the Netherlands and Germany, and then also obviously CA mark in the UK, given the NHS has been such a great partner for us to date, especially in this process. We're really excited about working with both the trusts in the Northeast that we work with, and then also even the folks out in Barts, et cetera, in London as well. So from top to bottom, if you will, really excited to work with the team there. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about what we're excited about, the platform's technology. As Dr. Whittaker has mentioned, we've really pushed the boundaries of what's possible with optical technology, and we're not, we certainly were not content to just sit on some of the basic vitals. We wanted to push past it into arenas such as electrolytes. In particular, we started off with potassium to help a patient population. But we see a real opportunity to push this past your basic vitals into your hemodynamics. The things obviously that we're working on include things like blood pressure. Dr. Whittaker's mentioned a little bit around blood flow within a vessel as well, which is certainly unique. And then really pushing the electrolyte game further beyond potassium into the other electrolytes that clinicians utilize to help manage chronic disease, all of that. So Alio is also all in one, right? So being able to do all of those things in one single wearable is certainly incredibly valuable. That's something we're excited to tackle as a company.
Absolutely. Yeah. You guys have accomplished so much already, but I think it's fair to say that you're just scratching the surface in terms of our understanding of what this technology can accomplish regarding diagnostics and measurement and reporting and so forth. Would that be a fair assessment?
Absolutely. I think commercially, we're absolutely focused on our launch market, but from where can this go to not only help this initial patient population, but even a broader set of patient populations? The work is certainly happening at the technological level in the background to really expand the impact that we can have.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very exciting and interesting. And again, as I said, important for health and well-being of entire societies. Well, look, I wish we had the chance to.
Excuse me, Barry. Could I just add in one little comment to?
By all means, please do.
Because Dave sparked on me a comment that I think it's important for us to make sure that we discuss, and that is he talked about the multi-centric aspect of what the Alio smart patch is capable of. Most of the solutions that are available currently in the remote monitoring system, they only provide solution for one area, one metric, maybe a heart rate, maybe a blood oxygen level. But what that ends up meaning for patients is that they have to coordinate all these different patches and all these different systems. So if someone is in a home setting, someone needs to put a thing on their finger, and they need to put a blood pressure cuff on their arm. Then they need to go stand on a scale to figure out what their weight is, and they need to take a stethoscope and listen to their fistula. What Alio has actually done is put that all together into one package and made it non-invasive and remote, as simple as putting a patch on, and then all that information is funneled forward. So I think that's another important aspect of what Alio has done that so many other people have not really focused on. How do we make life better for this patient population? I just wanted to make sure we put that there, because Dave, when you said that, it really sparked that aspect of what Alio has done.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, Dr. Whittaker, thank you for adding that, because I think it's easy to forget that you have an awful lot of technologies looking at very, very narrow issues regarding patient conditions. But the patient, of course, may have a variety of how do you say it, comorbidities, or they just quite simply might not want to have to put 6 different patches and monitors on 6 different bits of their body every day, or that type of thing. So that's an important addition. Thanks for the clarification. Hey, well, look, anything else you guys would like to cover? I feel like this has been a brilliant, interesting, and valuable conversation. Thank you so much. I'd love to continue this for another hour, but I don't think we have the time. Anything else you guys want to add? Dr. Whittaker, any final points you want to add? Or David, anything else?
One comment and topic that I think is certainly worth talking about, as well as accessibility to care. And I think just to mention that real briefly, I think if we talked about episodic care and patients having to come to clinicians, right? And this is true whether, once again, I work in the northeast of England, out in Middlesbrough. They've got patients that are every morning taking a taxi cab 3 times a week. I should say 3 mornings a week, taking a taxi cab 2 hours each way just to get dialysis.
Wow.
That's incredible. And every time they want to get a blood draw, every time they want to get an imaging study, that's a 2-hour taxi cab ride each way. Or you've got folks, on the East End of London that may not be able to communicate with their clinician or be able to tell them why they're not feeling well. Suddenly you've leveled the playing field if you get the right data at the right time that's always working without the patient needing to do anything. And once again, not just the basics, but what's actually going to land them in a hospital. And they may not know they're feeling bad, right? They may not have access to someone to take them to the hospital. They may not know to call 999 or 911, whatever it might be, right? And I think that's where the accessibility to care, and if you really focus, I think, as a company on meeting patients where they are and the needs that they have with the right tool for them, that's an important and incredible thing, I think, in terms of decreasing inefficiencies, but all increasing accessibility to care, I think, is an important topic that unfortunately doesn't come up. And last comment I'd make about that is even just something as simple as the fact that we actually, there's been in the US, there's been a question, as we've seen through COVID, questions around pulse oximeters and what do they do with different skin colors, right? And that's something that we actually spent time on, and making sure we correct for each of those, which is important. Once again, accuracy for us wasn't really a question. It was just a do the right thing and make sure that it works on everyone, because each person deserves the best. And I think that's something that's worth talking about from a conversational perspective as well.
Yeah, by all means. It's probably quite easy to overlook, isn't it? As you said, the acute episodic aspects of a patient's condition, and the time and troubles and cost that they are going through, all of which could be overcome with, for example, the Alio technology and platform, couldn't it?
Exactly. I think that's certainly part of our goal and vision, and certainly excited that others are embracing it as well.
Excellent. Cool. Any asks you guys want to have to our community? As you know, GIANT Health is an international community. We're over 320,000 people now. And of course, as you know, our strapline is that we serve everybody whose business is healthcare, technology, and innovation. Any particular asks? Are you guys looking to talk to investors for a Series D in the next few years, or any recruitment or anything at all?
Indeed. I think from our standpoint, we're growing as a company. We're excited about the growth. We are certainly, I think, in a unique position in many ways, in that I'll say demand far outstrips supply at this point.
Wow.
So that means we need people to be able to help implement this in multiple regions across the world. So excited for folks that are looking to make an impact in the kidney disease population. And on the investor side, really being able to get product into the hands of customers who want it. And if you can help us on that journey and continue to put some more fuel into the rocket ship, we'd love to talk to folks that may be interested in that as well.
Excellent. Remind us about your website address, please.
Yes, absolutely. So it's alio.ai.
Excellent.
Alio.ai.
alio.ai.
There it is.
Perfect. Hey, well, look at Dr. Whittaker and David. Thank you so much. This has been an extremely interesting conversation, and we're grateful for your time, which is obviously extremely valuable. What you guys are developing and what you have accomplished already is incredibly impressive. So congratulations on everything. And on behalf of everybody from the GIANT team, as well as our extended GIANT Health family, we'd like to wish you the best of luck and very excited about continuing to grow our collaboration with you guys. Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
Thank
Barry.
you so much, Barry.
Excellent. And this has been this week's episode of GIANT's Healthy Innovators TV. Very, very proud and delighted to have been bringing to you Dr. David Whittaker and David Kuraguntla, the CEO of Alio. Very excited about working with you guys. Thank you for your sponsorship. And for everybody who's been watching this video from around the world, if you like these, we invite you please to like and subscribe to our video. We'd like to thank some of our other sponsors, for example, Vodafone and McKinsey, our knowledge partner. And of course, we always invite all of our viewers to come to the GIANT website, www.giant.health. And we invite you to consider coming to our big annual event this year on the 4th and 5th of December in London, England. Hope to see you there. And in the meantime, if there's anything at all that any of our listeners want to learn about further about Alio, please don't hesitate to reach out directly to David or Dr. Whittaker or contact us here at GIANT and we can introduce you. So thanks again, everyone, and very best wishes.
Thank you so much, Barry.
Thank you.